Hi, Peter. This is my overall trip reflection, um, kind of my big takeaways from what I learned during the 10 days of the eScholars trip in Amsterdam and Stockholm. I think I didn't expect the culture shock, I think. Because I've lived so many places in the US, I didn't expect the culture shock to be so severe. And I got over it pretty quickly, but notably during the first day in Stockholm, I was like, "Oh, I'm an American and I don't understand these people's way of life. I like it. I like it, I think, more than the way that US citizens live, or Americans, people who live in the US live. But I feel like an idiot because we just don't do things as well as they do. And I recognize that they're pretty universally recognized. I recognize that they're pretty universally acknowledged for doing things well, like doing society the best in like Sweden and in the Netherlands. But it was a shock to me to really see it in action and see how much more smoothly society ran, um, in terms of like the infrastructure, the bicycle lanes. I walked around with Alec, and Alec was just pointing out like civil engineering things left and right that were just so much more intelligently designed than the way the US does things, just sticking places where they fit rather than where they make sense. Um, and the other thing that really stood out to me, especially, I have the knowledge, I guess, now from traveling more than just in Amsterdam and Stockholm, but history. Americans don't value or respect history in the same way that Europeans do. Um, I think in a large part due to the just the our physical surroundings being so much newer. Whereas, like, if you, I'm in Granada right now, and if you look behind me, you can see like the tile ceiling or roof. These buildings are from like the 1600s, 1800s, and you can just tell how old human society is and how much history repeats itself. Um, and Americans live in a bubble of modernity. Uh, we think that we're the first people to do what we're doing. And to a certain extent, the technology advancements make that true, but we're still humans and we still use technology. No matter how advanced the technology is, we still use and misuse technology in similar ways to our ancestors. And the other thing I kind of concluded from my trip is that I really want to study in Europe. Um, I really want the opportunity to live and learn more in Europe. I don't want just a month. I want a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe live here for a while, even after I finished my studies. Because, and I'll go back to the US eventually to like bring back what I've learned and implement it in US culture, knowing what I know about US culture, but also knowing what I've learned from European culture. Um, there's it's the slightly different way of doing things with the slightly different value systems that I think the US's ego is too big to learn from directly. And so I think that if we're going to implement what we can learn culturally from Europe, it's going to be indirectly, and I think like through policy, especially through policy, we can learn a lot from the EU and how they have managed to unite so many vastly different people. Like the amount of languages spoken here is ridiculous, and everybody speaks several languages, and yet and everybody can communicate effectively no matter what languages they speak with each other, because they try. And Americans speak all the Americans speak English. That's not true. The majority of Americans who only speak English can't even manage to communicate with each other. There's something wrong there. They're not trying. This is a bunch of generalizations, of course, sort of compiled from little things that I've observed on my trip, little conversations and interactions, and the ways that things have happened as compared to how they might have happened in the US. But I guess in conclusion, the most important thing that I've learned from this international trip is to learn by doing. I'm 21 and I have some time to get my career established and to make a difference in the world. But if I want to do everything that I want to do, I have to start making my mistakes now. You know, I've made so many mistakes traveling, and I'm learning from all of them, but I'm only learning because I am jumping in feet first and like allowing myself to make mistakes. And that's such an e-scholars thing, I think, is to learn by doing. So thank you very much for supporting me and all the e-scholars, past, present, and future, in learning by doing. It's something we need.